Hello, my name is Denise, and I am a middle school science teacher. And if you're like me, I need strategies that make my job easier and more efficient. And I think I have one you might find useful too. So, we know that scoring assignments is not enough. The feedback we provide is what actually drives progress. But providing feedback to hundreds of students can be tedious and time consuming. Rubrics are one way to efficiently let students know what criteria they met and what criteria they did not meet, so they can be aware of what progress they need to make moving forward. There is a quicker and more efficient way to use rubrics through Google Classroom that will cut down on the time it takes to use the rubric, and the feedback never gets lost. And it's easy for students to look back on it before attempting a similar assignment in the future. You can easily reuse rubrics that you have already created in Google Classroom. You can easily edit the ones you already have. And of course, you can share them amongst your colleagues so you're not reinventing the wheel. So, one of the repeating assignments my students do in science is write conclusions when they're done with an experiment. Conclusions consist of three basic parts: a claim, evidence, and reasoning. So I'm going to show you how to build a rubric in Google Classroom for writing a conclusion. Now, before I show you how to create the rubric, I want to show you why this is going to cut down on your time using a rubric in Google Classroom. So I'm going to head over to this assignment that I already created with my students. I had them write a conclusion, and I already set up a rubric. So here's the students writing, which I put into a table version so they could easily see which parts they already tackled and which parts they still needed to tackle. And then here's my rubric over here within Google Classroom. I made it worth a total of 10 points, and here are my three categories. I have a claim, that's up to 2 points. I have my evidence, they can earn up to 4 points, my reasoning up to 4 points. Now, what I like about this is I already know my three categories for my claim, and you'll see these little gray boxes here. These are my categories with point values. And if I just hover my cursor over here, that tells me if I click this box, it's going to give this person 2 points because they met the standard. If I scroll over this box, they get 1 point, they approach standard. And of course, this last box, 0, they didn't include a claim. So this makes it a really quick visual. I know which box is which, and I can just click. Now, let's say I get down to this next one and I forget what were my 5 categories. Again, I can scroll through. Maybe I forget what was the difference between my meet standard and approaches standard. I can easily click this down arrow, and then I can see all of the stuff that I typed in to let students know what they did or did not do to earn that score. So let's say I choose this person met standard. I can then click that caret back up, and that's the category I chose. And then again, if I know my reasoning, let's say they are below standard, I can easily just click that button. I can see the scores for each part, and then it gives me a total score here. And of course, if I made a mistake, this person actually earned a 3, I can go back in and see their final score here. This is what makes using a rubric in Google Classroom so easy. So now I'm going to show you how to set one up. So if I go over to one of my Google Classrooms, I'm going to click that Create button. And you do need to choose Assignment. The assignment category allows you this rubric right in here on Google Classroom. So I'm going to set up the same exact rubric that I just showed you so you can see what the format and layout looks like. So I'm just going to call this Conclusion very quickly for the sake of showing you the rubric. Of course, I'd write my instructions here for my students and fill out all of this. I am going to choose this to be 10 points total because I already know what I intend to have as my categories. I'm going to skip through this part just for the sake of getting to this rubric. When you click rubric, you have three options: create a rubric, reuse a rubric that you've used in Google Classroom before, or you can create it in Google Sheets and then import it. This might be a good option because you can just keep that rubric in a certain folder that might be attached to a specific assignment, and then you always know where that rubric is and can return to it year after year. I am going to show you the create rubric. So I'm going to choose the first option. When you pull this up, this is the name of my rubric. You have an option to not apply a score. So I'm going to be giving some feedback to students on an experiment design in a future assignment, and I don't want to give them a score. I just want them to see what they included and what they didn't so they can go back and fix it before I score it. So I might choose no scoring because, of course, if my students see a score, they're not going to go back and fix it if they're satisfied with the score. I don't want that. I want all students to go back and fix it. So again, I might choose the no scoring option for certain assignments. So when you scroll down, you will see that so far I only have 1 point value on my rubric. So I'm going to start by adding a criteria. So my criteria for a conclusion, my first criteria, is a claim. I am going to include a description that a claim explains the relationship between an independent variable, which my students know as IV, and a dependent variable, which my students know we use DV for that. There's my quick explanation for a claim. I'm going to have 3 different levels. So I'm going to choose that my first level is the highest they can get, which is at 2 points. And I'm going to say if they get 2 points, they meet the standard. And then I'm going to put a description. This is the feedback. What did you include in your claim to meet that standard? So the description for that is going to be that the claim explains the relationship, sorry for the typo here, the relationship between the IV and DV. Again, independent, dependent variable. Now, I have students who are going to not quite do that, so I'm going to add another level, and I'm going to give them 1 point, and my title will be You Approach Standard. And for this description, I have to let them know what did they not include. So I'm going to say that the claim explains that the IV affected the DV, but does not explain how. And I may put that in bold just so they can hone in on that. Now, I'm going to notoriously have some students who forget to put a claim at all. So I want to be able to give them that feedback that, hey, you're missing something here. So I'm going to give them one with a 0 point value, and I'm going to say not provided. And then again, here I can say claim not provided. So now I have my 3 levels, and you can now see that with all of these different levels, they can earn up to a 2. Now, there's more than a claim category needed for this rubric. So if I scroll down, I can add another criteria and complete that so that I get my claim as a criteria, my evidence, and my reasoning. I am going to show you my full rubric by going back and showing you how to reuse a rubric so you can see the full rubric I've already created. Okay, so I'm just going to click save. I can always come back to this and edit it and add more if I choose. For the sake of showing you how to reuse a rubric, I'm going to go back and again, I'm going to create an assignment. I'm going to call this conclusion 2 just for the sake of showing this. I'll make my point value 10. I'm going to go down to rubric, and this time I'm going to choose reuse rubric. When I choose that, I can choose which class period did I have this rubric in before. So here is the one that I just created with you. And maybe I want to reuse this BTB results and conclusion from the 24th. So if I click this, hit select, I can then click rubric to see what I have so far. So here's my claim, my evidence with all of my categories, and my reasoning. I can, of course, go back in and edit this rubric if I want to tailor it a little bit more to this assignment. I just want to show you an example of a rubric where I used it with no scoring. So this design a fair test experiment for the growth of algae. Let me open this rubric up. It's just for feedback only. There's no scores attached. So if they identified their independent variable, they've met the fair test criteria. If not, it's not a fair test. Or if they have more than one independent variable, again, it's not a fair test. So again, you can use these rubrics just for feedback only or to also include that score. So I hope this helps you out, because us teachers need to reduce our workload as much as possible, but still provide that really important feedback to students so they can use it, so they can make progress. Have a good one.